can't the United States of America do better than these two candidates?
After his deal with Fox Sports abruptly ended via poor ratings, Skip Bayless is giving election takes.
Let me say this about Donald Trump. I do not share a number of his views, maybe many of his views, but I do believe he's a natural-born leader who isn't afraid to make tough decisions and who, however you want to explain it, has been very lucky through his life. See the little scar on his ear as opposed to a hole in his head.
And here was his analysis.
But I will say this about Donald Trump. He does have what I call, if you will, some General Patton in him. You know General Patton from World War II, way before some of your times? Look him up. Donald Trump has some hard commander in him. When we were at war, World War II, with the Japanese in the Pacific Theater and Hitler in Europe, think about that. Whew, talk about double jeopardy. I'm sure glad we had General Patton on our side. He was a bad motor scooter.
Let's pause here. Using the word general and a name like Donald Trump at this stage in the game.
He asked Trump's former chief of staff, John Kelly, about claims that Trump once asked him, quote, "Why can't you be like the German generals?" So Goldberg then writes, well, he told me that when Trump raised the subject of German generals, Kelly responded by asking, "Do you mean Bismarck's generals?" He went on, I know he didn't know who Bismarck was or about the Franco-Prussian War. I said, "Do you mean the Kaiser's generals? Surely you cannot mean Hitler's generals." And he said, yeah, Hitler's generals. And The Atlantic goes on to cite then two more sources who were at the Trump White House. They claimed that they heard Trump say, quote, "I need the kind of generals that Hitler had, people who were totally loyal to him, that follow orders."
My mind and yours should immediately go to this. Also, the comparisons that Skip Bayless uses are just off.
Sometimes if you want to preserve your freedom from superpowers that want to take it from you, you need a Patton on your side at the controls, even if you don't believe in his politics.
Pause once more. It's rather odd, that Skip Bayless would attach Donald Trump to preserving freedoms when the man wants to do the complete opposite. From The Atlantic, the United States is on the eve of an election that could see the return to power of Donald Trump, an autocrat who vociferously and repeatedly threatens the basic freedoms of the American people, with a particular preoccupation with curbing freedom of speech and freedom of the press. Writes Adrian LaFrance, worse still, he has persuaded his followers to cheer on the demise of their own freedoms. When Trump tells people that journalists are, quote, the enemy of the American people, or, quote, evil, when he says that Americans who describe the criminal charges he faces should be investigated for treason, he's not merely denigrating a professional class, he's directly attacking the rights of all Americans. He is attacking those who happen to work as journalists, but he is likewise attacking their neighbors, every American who has the right to free speech and free press themselves. Snap it up, because that is very well put. And if Skip is watching, he should know. Trump has repeatedly suggested investigating and imprisoning Americans, as well as turning the United States military on the American public in order to do so. Do not, in any way, shape, or form, attach freedom to this man. He does not want freedom for the American public. He does not want freedom for anybody. And, as the writer rightfully puts it, he wants to limit the freedoms of those who believe that he is the most freedom person. It's like having Elon Musk say that he is the king of free speech, and then all he does on a platform that he buys, overpays for, through our own tax money and government subsidies, is how he is even within the ranks of the wealthiest person on the planet. What does he do? Anybody who investigates him, you're banned. Anybody who tweets about Palestine, banned. Anybody who tweets against extremism, banned. Journalist Matt Binder, who's on the Majority Report, works for Mashable, banned. Ken Klippenstein, banned. What do they all have in common here? And who is the number one donor to Donald Trump's campaign? Elon Musk. So don't give me this whole, oh, we're all about free speech. No, you're not. Get out of here, man. You are not about that. What you are about is stripping the rights of Americans. And it should also be noted that Donald Trump is the kind of person who praises dictators, autocrats. He is chummy with Vladimir Putin. One can be led to believe why. Is there something hanging over his head, or does he just want to be that sort of figure? He has praised Kim Jong-un and really appreciates how, per his own words to Fox News, he appreciates, in addition, how Kim Jong-un's people stand up and pay attention, and he wants his people to do the same. He really appreciates Duterte. These are, and President Xi Jinping, these are horrendous men. These are not the kind of people that you should be giving not just praise, but stamp after stamp after stamp of approval. And we know why. It's because he wants to join that club. That is why. And so I just asked the question, what are we doing here?
I do believe in the Bible, in the Old and the New Testament. And I do try to live my life by the Bible. And I believe with all my heart and all my soul that if our country does not support Israel, our country will fall. Please understand, every time I pray for the Palestinian victims of the Israel-Palestine conflict. I pray that it will end with some kind of peaceful coexistence, as unrealistic as that might be. But all I know for sure is that if we do elect a regime that turns its back on Israel, we will fail and we will fall. That's just my spiritual, biblical belief. It sounds like Trump is more inclined to support Israel. I know what Kamala said about doing everything in her power to end the Gaza conflict. I'm sorry, I never know what to believe anymore from one side or the other.
Here's what to believe, dude. Both have received money from AIPAC, so let's just be very, very blunt about it. They have both uttered the Israel has a right to defend itself line over and over again. They are both ardent supporters of Israel. So cut the crap here, Skip. In addition, want to end the Gaza conflict. That's what he said, right? Gaza conflict, as Bayless puts it. Awful frame. Awful frame. The only route is an arms embargo. And I know a lot of people are going to disagree with that, and that's totally fine. I don't know, how knees deep Skip is into what's going on. But my question is, biblically, why do you believe this? Because let me tell you something. If you are an evangelical Christian, do we know what happens to the Jewish people? Is that what you believe? Because those are serious questions that I have for you, man.
I'm not even sure I can trust our voting process anymore. How many votes are being allowed from people who are not even U.S. citizens? I have no idea. Don't know what to trust anymore.
Pause again. This echoes Trump's remarks about how illegal citizens are voting en masse, so he does not win. It's just another conspiracy for Trump to signal to his ardent supporters and for them to say, oh, he was cheated again. All these illegals, and they're just going to get the base riled up and they're going to claim fraud. However, via ProPublica, voting by non-citizens is illegal under federal law, and it almost never happens. State and federal elections require voters to be citizens of this country. Government election officials from both parties have emphasized that there are protections in place across the country to prevent non-citizens from casting a ballot. And listen to this. I'm going to play this piece of sound. Okay. It is from a Republican whose name is Joe Neild. He's a member of the RNC's election integrity team in Pennsylvania. He was listening to Republicans call in and ask questions. Here is something the RNC and Republicans, many, I would say 90% of them, will not say because they don't want you to know this. But all of this, I give him credit, being objective, credit where credit is due. He is right. And this is all accurate that he is going to say when responding to a caller. Here's that piece of video.
I have two questions. The first one is, how do you know if they are illegal aliens or not, like when they're voting? As far as what you were explaining with the ID, and if they're from another country, it was okay as long as they had an ID. How do you know if they're illegal aliens? How can you stop that? If
they're illegal aliens, they're not going to be inside the poll book. Because if they're illegal aliens, they're not going to be able to register to vote because they'll need a driver's license number or a social security number. And then through recent litigation in the years past, you do have to be able to get a driver's license here in Pennsylvania. You have to show proof of citizenship. So that is one way that they will not be able to get a driver's license. And then you have to be, since they're illegal, they're not going to be able to get a social security number either.
Why won't they come out and say this? In droves. We know why. It's because they need to hang their hat on many pillars to uplift the conspiracy that they don't want Trump to win. When really, there is one side, and I say this all the time, trying to limit the vote, that does not want you to vote. And there's another side that wants everyone to vote if you are a citizen of the country. There's one side that's not trying to make it almost impossible in some states to vote. And the other side wants to limit it because, again, as I've said many times over, via Paul Weyrich, they win elections. Conservatives do when the voter turnout and the vote is down. And they will do everything in their power for that to manifest.
I'm just not sure either he or Kamala truly believe in a higher power, truly worship that higher power, truly pray for divine guidance. I'm just not sure either candidate has God in his or her heart. I have pretty good instincts about this, and I'm just not convinced.
And again, credit where it's due. This is actually spot on from Skip Bayless. And this is something that I really agree with. Take a look.
But Kamala, I don't know. The best thing I can say about Kamala is she'd be okay. Not bad. Just fine. But rare, special, dynamic. I don't know. Maybe I'd be pleasantly surprised once she took over. But I believe that many people, maybe a majority of people voting for Kamala, are doing so by default. They're voting for Kamala only because there's no way they'd vote for Donald Trump.
If you have not already, I beg you, vote. It is quite literally the least that we can do. Do I believe it's a moral duty and a civic duty? Yeah, I do. I do. But what I will also say is this, as a proud leftist and someone who appears more left than others at this point, elections are the bare minimum. Yes, it is important to really look into these candidates, know their policies, see where they morally align with your values and how you want that to be represented in DC. But it's also very important to have that same sort of representation locally. It is about grassroots movements. It is about building community. It is about organizing. It is about activism. It is about protest. It is about building a coalition locally because that is what matters. Local politics really matter. And that's also on the ballot as well. If you can and are willing, please become a paid member here at TYT Sports. And or go to tyt.com/join. In addition, you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Appreciate it. Have a great day.